Expecting you. Welcome to a seriously spooky episode of QI, where tonight we'll be scaring ourselves silly. Summon forth the poltergeists. At the skin-tingling David Mitchell. The spine-chilling Zoe Lyons. The sweat-soaked Richard Osman. The spooktacular Alan Davis. And their noises of the night are suitably spectral, so David goes... Wow. Zoe goes... Frequently. Richard goes...
I might mime that every time I do it.
What does it say about me that I find it sexy?
Yeah, well, listen, you in that hat I also find powerfully erotic, so...
And Alan has the most terrifying sound of all.
This is the BBC News at 6 o'clock. Good evening.
Blood-curdling. Right, let's all join hands and begin. Although I might just take this off because it's actually surprisingly heavy.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Sandy Toksvig.
OK, let's kick off. What smells like ripe gorgonzola, doesn't show up well in photos and should not be touched under any circumstances?
Boris Johnson. My work here is done.
Is it a vampire's penis?
I'm amazed you haven't got a klaxon for that.
Yeah. It's not the bit of the vampire you worry most about, is it?
But the thing is, though,
yes,
there's going to be a penis under that opera cloak somewhere, and it might have gone a bit cheesy.
I'm going to write an erotic vampire book called Ejacula.
I bet about £1,000 that's been done.
I want to say ectoplasm.
Yes, you do want to say ectoplasm because
do I want to say ectoplasm?
You do. That is the correct answer. Very well done, Zoe. Yes. So this is the extraordinary thing. So after World War I and then the terrible Spanish flu, lots of people had lost their relatives. They wanted to get back in touch with them. So spiritualism became a massive thing. And by 1930, you've got 250,000 British people who are a member of a spiritualist church. And then you get people like Arthur Conan Doyle, and he decides to announce that he's used a séance to get hold of his son, who he had lost in the war, Kingsley. And all of a sudden, all of these mediums are incredibly famous. And this is some of them trying to produce ectoplasm, OK? It was taken very seriously. It was investigated by all sorts of committees and lots of universities and so on. Here's the convenient thing for the mediums, and I think inconvenient for the sceptical investigator. Ectoplasm, supposedly very sensitive to light and to touch, and it might cause serious and undefined damage to the toucher.
Wow. Like a vampire's penis.
Yeah.
Sorry to gesture to you as I say, like a vampire's penis.
These are people, supposedly, with ectoplasm coming out of them. What do you think it's actually... what do you think it was made of?
It looks like a tissue.
Yeah, it's cheesecloth.
Oh, is that...
Yeah, it's cheesecloth or muslin and gelatin and egg white and soap and so on. And there was a famous investigator called Harry Price, and he was the one who said it smelled of ripe gorgonzola.
I'm not surprised.
Wow.
Well, it could have been worse, OK? So there was a famous Danish medium called Einar Nielsen, and he was investigated by a committee from a Norwegian university, and they concluded that he had been hiding it in his bottom.
Oh.
Yes, before feeding it up through a hole in his outfit. To his mouth, before pretending to vomit it out. That's him on the left there. And, I mean...
Still probably not the worst thing I've ever eaten.
No. Probably not something out of your bottom, though, I would imagine.
What was being able to produce this cloth out of your mouth? What did that prove?
That you were in touch with the spirit world. If you look at the one on the right there, that's a French medium called Eva Carrère, and she used to chew paper and faces cut out of magazines, and she got caught because that person in the photograph is clearly the King of Bulgaria. And people went, no, you cannot have regurgitated the King of Bulgaria. But there was one woman called Helen Duncan. My goodness, she was probably the most famous ectoplasm producer. And in fact, there she is.
Oh, wow.
Look at her. She's rather marvellous, isn't she?
She's really gone for that, hasn't she?
I very much like the outfit, because you can see she's got her trousers tied at the ankles, and I don't know if it's just like loads of muslin and cheesecloth down there. Anyway, she produced endless ectoplasm. She was the very last woman in Britain convicted in 1944 under the Witchcraft Act of 1735. So she wasn't actually convicted of witchcraft, but of falsely claiming to procure spirits. So basically pretending to be a witch when she wasn't.
Not real ectoplasm?
No! Apparently, Harry Price, the great investigator, stole a sample, and it was a mix of wood pulp and egg white.
Oh.
But apparently she could produce yards at a time. It would emanate from her mouth, her nostrils, her nipples and between her legs.
Wow.
She looked like a vampire's cock by the end of it.
I know.
At what point in the history of witchcraft laws did the crime of being a witch give way to the crime of pretending to be a witch?
Yeah.
Was there a year, like, everyone...
1735.
Yeah, they all went...
1734, you'd better not be a witch. 1735, you'd better be a witch.
Well, the weird thing is, it was to do with the Second World War. So she had a séance in November of 1941 in Portsmouth, at which she claimed that the spirit of a sailor had told her that the HMS Barham had sunk. Now, this was not public knowledge that this boat had sunk. But once she announced it, obviously, everybody started to pay attention, and then the Navy got very anxious that maybe she could actually announce things that people shouldn't know about from the spirit world. And Churchill was furious that the time was being wasted on this stupid woman who was producing muslin out of a whatnot, and said it was just absurd. She suffered from very heavy nosebleeds, and it's probably because she kept some ectoplasm up her sinuses.
I think there might be a roll or 9 of cheesecloth still in my brain.
It's the ectoplasm coming out of the nipples that I'd be a bit more worried about. I mean, some severe chaffing, I would have thought, would have also been a side effect.
I want to show you something else that is part of the medium's repertoire. This is a spirit trumpet. And it's a device which was supposed to amplify abnormal, paranormal noises. What I love about this, OK, the woman sitting in the chair is Harry Houdini's wife, OK? And the guy standing next to her with the handcuffs, he can't open them because Harry Houdini is the only person with the combination and Harry's dead. And they're trying, through seance, Mrs. Houdini, the man with the handcuffs, to get hold of Harry to ask him how to unlock the handcuffs.
I think the woman on the right is thinking, that's Lenin. You know, they still do this every year.
Do they?
And I know because I went to one of these seances.
Oh, my goodness.
Harry Houdini was obsessed with the spirit world. He had a very close relationship with his mother and he wanted to get in touch with his mother. He was always uncovering people, charlatans and frauds. And he said, if I can communicate with you, I will open a pair of handcuffs. And so we staged a séance and we all sat around and the handcuffs were on the table and we went through the thing and they didn't open. But it's quite exciting. It's the only
Where are
séance
they
I've
then?
ever been to in New York.
I went to one, I didn't enjoy it, and it was ironically almost impossible to get out.
But the spirit trumpet, which is the thing on the front, it used to be connected, in fact, to a sort of a hidden rubber hose, and then the assistant or somebody would provide the vocals going... Ectoplasm is the largest thing that can be produced by a small medium. What was so scary, it made sailors soil themselves.
Oh.
Dysentery?
It is to do with the disease.
You don't want to get dysentery on a ship. Suddenly they've all got dysentery. A lot of those cruises, it's all dysentery, a great brown streak going through the fjord or whatever it is.
It's a great name for a yacht, isn't it?
Dysentery.
Do come aboard the dysentery.
Do come aboard the dysentery.
I thought the Great Brown Streak.
Oh, the Great Brown Streak is
Quite a
also,
nice name
is
for it,
also
yeah.
good.
It's a good name for a current.
Yeah.
An ocean current.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the Great Brown Streak.
Oh.
Yeah, it attracts prawns, but then you don't want to eat them.
I go scuba diving, and the last time I went scuba diving was in Mexico, and I can tell you there's nothing more horrifying than discovering 20 metres underwater that you are going to suffer from what can only be described as catastrophic shit.
Oh.
In a wetsuit. Oh. We were diving with sharks, and I didn't know how they'd react.
I think they're just going to back off and go.
I think they probably will, actually.
Yeah. It's a disease. It's a disease that you can get at sea. It's an old disease at sea.
Scurvy.
Scurvy. What do we know about scurvy?
Lack of vitamin
Citrus
C.
fruit.
Vitamin C. So what do you need?
Lemon juice.
Lemons. You
Lemon.
need
Oh.
lemons. You need lots and lots of lemons.
Give me lemons and I'll cure you of scurvy. That's the expression, isn't it? when life gives you lemons,
Yeah.
at least the scurvy problem's on the way out.
So before they discovered that scurvy was due to a lack of vitamin C, they thought it was due to being away from land. OK?
Oh.
And so the treatment in the 18th century, quite a common treatment, was to bury the sufferers in soil. That was the idea. It was called earth bathing. Sounds rather pleasant. Home soil was thought to be best. So the ship owners would take boxes of English earth with them, for example, on voyages.
Best type of earth there is.
Best in the world.
Yeah, you won't beat it. You won't beat a bit of English earth, I'll tell you that.
And so there was one convict ship captain called Thomas Melville, and he would bury them just sort of up to the neck like that and then make them eat vegetables. And probably the vegetables were, in fact, the bit that was doing them good. James Lynn, the man who in the end proved that citrus beat scurvy, he also thought it was a wonderful idea, and it became a thing that was recommended on dry land, earth bathing.
Yeah.
There was a guy called James Graham. He's one of my favourite, rather notorious 18th century quacks. This is his gaff, and it's possibly him there in the blue.
Is this from their website?
But he recommended that you bury yourself in the earth right up to your lips, and this has cured not just scurvy, but venereal disease, rheumatism, leprosy, cancer, all sorts of extraordinary things. And Graham himself earth-bathed dozens of times. He would do it as a public spectacle. People would pay to watch him be interred naked.
Interred?
Well, I don't know what else. In earth.
Sorry,
interred, yes. Usually next to an equally naked female.
Watch me interred.
I was interred in Mexico.
You were interred.
He doesn't look unhappy, that man in the middle, does he?
I was slightly baffled, but he only went in for a pedicure.
He's having that old crone is giving him a nice brush.
Yes, get a little bit of the...
He's just pulled that out of his arse. It was this!
It's quite sound. As you know, they thought, OK, people only get scurvy away from land, so it's quite sound to say, well,
Maybe
our
it's the land.
hypothesis might be absence of land. That's quite reasonable. It's the person that feeds the vegetables as well as burying them in earth that's the poor scientist, because he's changed two variables.
You're right.
Yeah, idiot.
Yeah.
You've changed two variables. You terrible
Absolute
Fool.
imbecile.
Yeah.
Which was a huge thing, scurvy. So during what's called the Age of Sail, so we're talking about 1570s to 1860s, scurvy killed over 2 million sailors. So it's more than storms and shipwrecks and battles and all the other diseases combined. And for long voyages, ship owners would assume that about 50% of the crew were going to go with it. So what happens without vitamin C? What happens to the body?
Do your teeth fall out?
Well...
Like your skin decays?
Yeah, it's a particular thing. We can't carry out the reactions that produce collagen. So collagen is like the glue that holds our tissues together. You literally start falling apart.
Yeah.
You feel weak, you get ulcers, you bruise at the gentlest touch, your gums putrefy, your teeth loosen, old wounds reopen. I mean,
You need a wetsuit, don't you?
Yeah, you need to hold yourself together.
Hold yourself together.
Yeah. Ectoplasm!
Eventually you bleed internally and die. Other than that, yeah.
All for the want of a lemon.
I know, right?
Was it a rented wetsuit?
It was my own wetsuit.
Thank God,
Yeah.
in many ways.
Yeah.
What did the sharks make of it?
They didn't come anywhere near me, I'll be honest.
What's a
with you.
shark
They did.
that's holding its nose? Look.
Yeah. Yeah. it was... That's why they call me Jacques Cousteau.
Right. What's this guy's problem?
Well, that is Edvard Munch's The Scream.
Yeah.
He's been told that if you cross this bridge, your ears will fall off. And then halfway across, his eyes fell out. And the two people behind are pissing themselves. Hold on to your ears, whatever you do.
It's sold for hundreds of millions, and it's literally just a rip-off of one of the emojis.
What is the main problem that this painting is currently having or has had?
It keeps getting
Copies.
stolen.
Is it copies?
No, the real problem is us, or human beings, is the truth of it. So visitors to the Munch Museum in Oslo are damaging the screen by breathing too close to it.
They need to put some sort of rail.
Yeah.
They need a 2-metre rail.
I'm amazed it's got to us as an issue. I think there's something they could have sorted out for themselves with just really like a moment's thought. But
what it is telling, it's excess humidity. So you're right about the copies. There are 4.
There's Scream 2,
Yeah.
Scream 3. Scream 3 is the one where Courtney Cox died, right?
They're all on cardboard, but 2 are pastels and 2 are painted. The one you saw earlier was the painted one.
that one looks less sincere. That looks he's putting it on a bit there.
And did you say about it being stolen?
Yes, been
It has
stolen
been
many
stolen,
times.
hasn't
Yeah, it has been stolen many times. In 1994, the very first version was stolen from Norway's National Gallery. It took 50 seconds for 2 men to pull up in a van, prop a ladder up against the wall, and climb in and climb out again. And they left a little note saying, "Thanks for the poor security."
Wow.
When the version from 1910 was stolen in 2004, this is less smooth, I have to say, than the 50-second one. The robbers had to ask to be shown their target because they weren't entirely sure which one it was.
What other paintings must there be there for you to know that the painting's called The Scream and not think, oh, I bet it's that one?
Yeah, I don't know. We now think that Munch's figure was in fact inspired by a Peruvian mummy which he saw when he went to visit the Ethnographic Exchange Museum in Paris. It's a Chachapoya warrior who lived in the Amazon maybe around 1,000 years ago. So
He's just got his orthodontist bill.
Yes, the teeth aren't bad for 1,000 years.
They're not bad, are they?
No.
Oh, that's all right.
But when it was brought to Paris, it did have a big effect on a lot of people because Paul Gauguin is thought to have been inspired by exactly the same mummy. There's a marvellous painting of his called Where Do We Come From? What Are We? Where Are We Going? And if you look down in the bottom left-hand, you can see it's thought that he was inspired by the same 1,000-year-old figure.
That's someone saying 9, 10, coming ready on.
I'm on my way.
Put your top on.
Too naked.
I don't want to. I like being like this. I like being free. I like being outside. Put your top on.
What's the problem?
Mum!
I've put a bit of ectoplasm over my groin.
You're the only one with your top off. The only one on the beach.
Now, for a question on screams and screens, how can you make a scary movie even scarier? Did that help?
Darkness, being in the dark.
Where did you get your clues from?
I don't know.
I took my daughter when she was 2 to a pantomime. It started in blackout. Lots and lots of little kids, and it's Jack and the Beanstalk, and all the lights went out, and I could feel her little hands just gripping hold of my arm, and then over the tannoy, fee, fi, fo, fum, and they all burst into tears. They had no idea what was going on. There hadn't even been a bean yet, never mind a stalk, never mind a climbing up, never mind the giant. And then the lights came on and someone from EastEnders went, "Hello, boys and girls." And I had to take her home. She was inconsolable. And she still gets anxious whenever she sees an auditorium of any sort.
Or EastEnders.
I took my godson Joe when he was 3 to a pantomime, and there was a character in it who turned to the audience and went, "I'm going to eat all the children." And Joe shouted, "He's just kidding, but let's go home anyway." So scary movies, we're talking about a very celebrated showman called William Castle. He used to be known as the Abominable Showman, and he was a B-movie director in the days when there were B-movies. He's the guy on the right there, his friend.
Not the guy in the middle.
No, not the guy in the middle. And he was famous for films like House on the Haunted Hill and The Tingler and so on. And he had the most fantastic gimmicks. So in 1958, he produced a film called Macabre, and every single member of the audience was given a life insurance policy. So you signed it as you entered, and if you died of fright in your seat, your family got given $1,000. Very sadly, nobody...
That's very good.
Nobody did die from this.
Come on, Nana, let's get to the cinema.
But he used to keep nurses on standby in case there was something terrible. He would have hearses lining the street outside special showings. He often arrived at a premiere in a coffin himself, and he would employ women to sit in the audience and scream at specific scary moments. So there's a marvellous moment in The Tingler when a character breaks the fourth wall and turns to the audience and says a sort of deadly parasite has escaped into the cinema, and then the people that he'd paid were trained to collapse into screaming hysterics. And hid buzzers in seats to give vibrations at sort of key moments in the film.
It feels like if you Googled The Tingler, something else would come up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
These days, yes. Yeah, that's probably true. He had a film in 1961 called Homicidal, and it had a fright break in it. You were allowed to leave and get a full refund before the terrifying sort of denouement of the entire thing. You had to leave your seat and follow a yellow streak before the entire audience to a special booth called Coward's Corner, and a light shone on you with a recording intoning "Watch the chicken, watch him shiver in Coward's Corner." Right, moving on. Where would you find the UK's largest collection of spirits?
It's currently under my bed.
Are they all empties, darling?
I've got one of those. I've stolen it from my mum. She had a hip replacement a few years ago. One of those grippy arm things, so I don't even have to get out of bed. And I just, there we go. Oh, there we go. Gin, that'll do.
Can you siphon it with a tube?
Yeah.
You shouldn't steal from your mum just because she can't run after you. That's
I know.
It's not kind. To the museum, it's in London. Spirit collection, 23 million objects.
Is it the Gin Museum? Is there a Gin Museum?
It's the Natural History Museum.
Oh, is it preserving things?
Yeah. Ethanol and formaldehyde. So the whole collection takes over 27 kilometres of shelving.
Wow.
There's an alcohol supply system that runs all the way through the museum's walls, and it's linked to two 1,000-litre tanks of ethanol.
Just like your house, though.
It's like my house.
Like Zoe's house. It's pumped around the museum with compressed air, and every single lab has got a tap that you can draw from and preserve a specimen. But why do they not drink it?
Because it kills you.
That is correct. It's highly toxic.
And it's got a snake in it.
We'll see about that.
Yes, ethanol is not a drinking alcohol, is it? It's a killing alcohol.
Yeah, so it's not good. Has anybody been to the Hunterian Museum that's in Lincoln's Inn in London?
Yes.
It's got one of my favourite things. It's got a jar of moles, and by that I mean the creatures, not people's moles, you know, and the Bishop of Durham's rectum.
Can't take your eyes off it.
I've been looking for that.
There you go.
Well, my question is it always the rectum of the current Bishop of Durham?
Yeah, no.
Because I wouldn't want to see... I don't want to see the rectum of a former Bishop of Durham.
Yeah.
I want to see the current bishop's rectum.
One of the conditions of accepting the post is you give up your rectum.
What self-respecting bishop will be using his rectum?
Yeah.
It's the bishop's going, I'm sorry, I thought you said rector. No, it's Thomas Thurlow, who died of bowel cancer in 1791. So he called in John Hunter, Dr. John Hunter, for whom the museum is named, and he correctly diagnosed that he had an incurable thing. And when he did the autopsy, he wrote out a technical detail description of the disease and then preserved the rectum for posterity. You can see it at the Hunterian. Now, strap in and prepare for a scare as we board the ghost train of general ignorance. What's the fastest mammal on the planet? Yes.
Cheetah.
They can do 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3 seconds, but they're not the fastest.
Not as quick as filing as humans.
No, that's true.
Is it across the ground, or is it going to be a mammal that can drop out of a tree and live or something?
It's nothing to do with with diving, but it is in the air.
So like a flying fox or something like that?
Well, it's the Mexican free-tailed bat. It is the fastest mammal on Earth. And so I love this. Researchers at Tennessee, they strap tiny little backpacks to them. You can imagine how small they must have been.
Slow them down.
Yeah, and then they monitored them from a low-flying plane, which must have been annoying. They routinely reach 100 miles an hour with wing power alone. So we're not talking about a tailwind, we're not talking about diving.
Wow.
We're just on their own
Pure
ability.
flapping.
Yeah, so your cheetah, darling, 75 miles an hour.
It's nothing.
Nothing.
To what end would they go?
They're terrified by an aeroplane that's following them.
Bats form the largest mammal colony in the world. It's a place called Bracken Cave in Texas. There are over 15 million of them, OK? Every night they leave in what's known as a batnado. It's like rhymes with tornado, OK? So numerous. Batnado. Can I say, it's slightly disturbing to watch because it sort of flashes at you. Let's have a quick look. And nearby planes have been instructed to avoid them. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? And they eat... This colony alone eats more than 80,000 tonnes of insects a year. So that's...
Wow.
To help you, Alan, that's 500 blue whales.
Imagine if they went after a blue whale.
Yeah.
That's a film I'd watch.
They're also known as guano bats. Does anybody know what guano is?
Yeah.
Bat poo. They drop about 50 tonnes of guano on the floor of their cave every year, and in the 19th century they thought they'd dig down and see how far it had laid down. They got down to 60 feet and they gave up.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have stopped before 60 feet.
Yeah.
I would have gone like 8 feet and gone, it's really deep.
Let's just say there's lots of bat shit.
They're at 59 feet and someone's going, yeah, honestly, just a bit more. Honestly, let's just keep going.
I'm losing my mind! He's gone batshit crazy!
There are birds that can move faster than these bats, but only when they're diving. So a peregrine falcon can exceed 180 miles an hour in a dive. In fact, there was one measured in 2005 at 242 miles an hour. How fast do you think blue whales go, Alan?
12 knots.
Knots? Good.
They can do 30 miles an hour, but only in short bursts. It's usually about 5 miles an hour.
30, can't they?
Quite fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
30 miles an hour. Yeah, that's shifting.
That's why you never see them in city centres.
No, they're always getting
Speed bump.
speeding tickets.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of beast is this?
It's a sphinx.
I was going to say, I've done cheetah.
So the thing we know is the Great Sphinx. It was carved in about 2,550 BC. Technically not a sphinx, because the word sphinx doesn't appear until 2,000 years after the statue was built. And the fact is, we don't know for sure what it was originally meant to represent. So it might have been built for a sun god called Horus of the Horizon, or Hor-em-Akhet, or it may represent a particular pharaoh called Khafre, who ruled during the Old Kingdom. His father built the nearby Great Pyramid. Well, let's have a look at an actual, what is known as a sphinx, which is the Sphinx of Greek myth. It had a lion's body, a woman's head, and an eagle's wings. And the statue that we saw at Giza does not fit those criteria. The one in Giza doesn't have wings, and it's got a man's head. And the reason that we know that is because it used to have a beard, which fell off.
No.
Yes. The British Museum, this is a marvellous thing, has got sphinx stubble in its collection.
Wow.
I know. It was already in a state of disrepair by 1400 BC when the earliest attempts were made to restore it by the pharaoh.
The rendering's gone on that.
It's gone, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You want to pebble dash that?
Yeah.
And it kept
I don't
being...
know a lot about DIY, but the
No.
plaster's blown. You're going to have to take that all the way back.
Anyway, it keeps getting buried in sand, and it was only excavated to look like this, its current glory, in the 1920s.
Really?
Wow.
It was
Yes.
buried in sand for centuries. That's extraordinary.
I know.
Why did I not know this before?
Because that's my job. All of which leaves us with the haunting matter of the scores. And in first place, with 1 point, it's Richard!
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Hanging around in purgatory in second place with -5, it's Zoe! Clanking their chains and wandering the earth forever with -6, David! Oh, and banished to the deepest nether dimensions with -23, it's Alan!
If you hadn't said TT, you'd have won. I'd have said it to you.
And I leave you with this sepulchral sign-off from Seinfeld. According to most studies, people's #1 fear is public speaking. #2 is death. That means at a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. Good night.